Welcome to another FPL video. This is going to be a bit different. I'm going to show you the best bench boost team for Double Gameweek 36. Normally it's the best wildcard and free hit teams, and while there is a best free hit team on this channel, there will be no wildcard team this week as we've talked about it quite extensively over the last few weeks and months, but we're going to focus specifically on the bench boost. It's going to be very popular this week and it's the biggest Double Gameweek of the season, so it makes complete sense, and we're going to basically be doing triple recordings and uploads most days, and if not it'll be doubles, and there's pretty much been videos and streams every single day, so I'd appreciate if we can get this video to 150 likes to show support for all the effort, and also to get to 11,000 subscribers. We're only around 200 away from that milestone, and thank you very much to everyone who's already done so, and those that are about to do it, thank you very much, and let's get straight into this. We've gone for Kasper Schmeichel yet again, but we've also gone for a similarly priced goalkeeper in Jordan Pickford, who was man of the match against Chelsea, and his heroics could actually be the difference in Everton staying up or getting relegated to the Championship. It was an incredible display, and there's a few other goalkeepers to consider. Ederson, for example, which I talked about in the best free hit team video, and as a few commenters pointed out, such as TechXEO, so thank you very much, he mentioned Edouard Mendy. So if you're not really too sure about going for the defenders like Alonso and James, especially in the case of Reece James because of rotation and his minutes constantly being managed and his injury problems, then perhaps Mendy could be the solution to get a piece of that Chelsea defence, and you would expect him to start both. However, as I've said before, I wouldn't be too surprised if Kepa gets one game in Double Gameweek 36, which sounds preposterous, but it isn't completely impossible in my opinion. Let me know, do you think Mendy plays both games, and would you go for him over one of these two goalkeepers? You also have to take into account the budget. I think that's really important. Not everyone can afford the team that I'm going to show you here today, and the same goes for the best free hit team, but then some of you may have even more money to spare and you can make a few upgrades depending on your preferences. But I would go for Schmeichel and Pickford. Another goalkeeper that's an enabler, especially if you're struggling for funds, would be Ben Foster. Other than those kind of five goalkeepers I mentioned, I'm not a big fan of the rest. Aaron Ramsdale hasn't kept a clean sheet in 6 games. Arsenal could keep a clean sheet on Sunday against Leeds, but against Tottenham I'd be very surprised if they kept one. So ultimately I would kind of narrow it down to those 5 goalkeepers, and if you already have free City, I think this is the goalkeeper pairing I'd go for. If not, maybe Edouard Mendy with the extra funds. This is a very similar looking defence to what you saw in the best free hit team. The only major change really is Ben Johnson out for Marcos Alonso. Remember, on a free hit, you want to prioritise your starting 11, have 1 or 2 decent options on the bench, but on a bench boost, if possible, you would want as many good players or top quality players as possible. We've gone huge at the back. Now, there's no Andy Robertson in here. I've already made my feelings clear about him. I think he's the most informed defender, and I'm pretty sure he has the most points in FPL since Game Week 13. He's been incredible, but he started once again against Villarreal, and before that game, after the Newcastle match, Klopp made a few comments talking about his desire to rest Robertson, but they just didn't want to make too many changes at once because they had already benched Trent and they changed Konate from the Champions League match, so they didn't want to change too much in that regard. So I would expect Robertson to play against Tottenham but be benched against Aston Villa, and therefore I would go for 2 defenders from Liverpool that I think will start both. And you may ask, well, why do you think Trent is going to start and not Robertson? Well, Trent just got his rest against Newcastle, and I think he will be good to play both games there, and Liverpool really need him, and I don't think there's going to be a scenario where both Trent and Robertson are benched. Even if Tsimikas is a very good replacement for Robertson, I just don't see that being the case. So let me know what you think of that situation. I could be wrong, I'm just offering my opinion. I would go for Trent, and despite my reservations and concerns about Matip's fitness over the course of the season, he's been incredible. He hasn't gotten an injury so far. Hopefully he doesn't get one. I don't wish on anyone, and I think he's a bonus points machine, and he's a very good player to fill in for Robertson, and also significantly cheaper, and that enables you to go for Joao Cancelo as well, and Laporte, as well as Alonso. This is a very heavy defence. You might argue, just go for someone cheaper like Sessegnon, Tomiyasu, Ben White, or maybe Eric Dyer, Emerson Royal, etc. But I would go for this back 5 if possible, and I would cover Chelsea defence in one way or another, but I went for the 2 goalkeepers Schmeichel and Pickford, therefore I've gone for Marcos Alonso in the back line. Another concern you could have with this team is potentially Marcos Alonso himself. Will he start both games? A lot of Chelsea fans believe they'll go strong against Wolves, then possibly rotate against Leeds, and that is definitely a possibility. But will they completely change the entire starting 11? I'm not too sure, but there could be heavy changes there, and even some Chelsea fans would expect Kepa to start. So there's a lot of doubts about Chelsea, therefore a lot of their assets aren't that appealing this week. But if I had to pick one Chelsea defender, it would be Marcos Alonso. With Reece James, despite the fact that I think he's a better option than Alonso when they both start, I just think Alonso's more nailed on, and until Ben Chilwell is fully available and there's no risk of an injury by playing him, I think Alonso should be quite safe in the left wing-back spot, as opposed to James, who, to be honest, he can sometimes play as a right centre-back to kind of ease the load on himself, because he does get injured quite a lot, and they don't want him playing right wing-back every single game. Otherwise, he's probably going to get another injury or lack fitness in one of their important games of the season, including the FA Cup final. And I think Reece James, despite how good of an option he is, and he could start both games, I couldn't count on it, and I'd be a bit more confident about Marcos Alonso. So the City and Liverpool defenders I talked a lot about in my best free hit team video, so I don't really need to recap on them. I think they're the two best defences, and a bit similar to the 2018-19 season when they were both gunning for the title and only 1 point separated them. Their defences were momentous. They were so good, they were colossal, and they just constantly kept clean sheets and rarely conceded chances. And I think both teams will be solid at the back, and that's why I will double up on both of them and get one Chelsea defender here. This is a very similar midfield as well, and pretty much across the whole team there's been one change. So Pickford in for Foster, Marcos Alonso in for Ben Johnson, and also Phil Foden for De Bruyne compared to the best free hit team. Now, I would ideally have the Belgian, but I wouldn't be able to afford De Bruyne in for Foden. If you can somehow, then great, go ahead and do it. And maybe if you're willing to sacrifice someone else in order to achieve that, I think that's completely fine. But this ultimately facilitates the best squad depth possible for a very solid bench boost. I expect Foden to start both games, but then again, kind of similar to Marcos Alonso, I wouldn't be surprised if in one of those matches Foden was on the bench. City have a lot of options at their disposal. The likes of Raheem Sterling could get one game and go crazy. Would I recommend him though? Probably not. I've gone for Salah. Yes, he might not be the most informed player in the league, but he's still getting returns. That's 3 consecutive returns in a row. And to be honest with Salah, he's just someone you don't really want to go about. He's a bit of a shield, so even if you don't captain him, you cover him nonetheless. And I think he's still going to be one of the best captaincy options this week. It's between him and De Bruyne, in my opinion. And I would slightly favour De Bruyne, especially for the upside and his low ownership. But I think Salah is arguably just as good, if not even better. I've gone for Heung-min Son. Now, Spurs have 2 really tough fixtures. The North London derby, anything can happen there. It could be anyone's game. Against Liverpool, despite the fact that you would back Liverpool to win, Spurs could still score, and Son is lethal on the counter-attack. He's clinical, and he's in great form. Over the last 5 or 6 game weeks, he's got an insane number of points, you know, pretty much close to around 70 or 80, with huge double-digit returns. And he got 19 points in game week 35, and just a few weeks ago, he got 21. He's in absolutely incredible form, and as much as I think Harry Kane's a great option, Heung-min Son offers much better value, and I would rather go for him. So I would cover Spurs that way. Kulusevski's also not a bad replacement for him, but ultimately I would go for Heung-min Son. If you want to go about things a little bit differently and you have a similar budget to me, you can maybe go for Kulusevski in for Son and De Bruyne in for Foden, but I'm not quite sure if I would prefer that duo over Son and Foden. Ultimately, that's up to you. Gordon's there once again as a 5th midfielder. I talked about this in my best free hit team video. He's a great enabler, so a great transfer when you're using normal transfers, on a free hit, on a wild card, no matter what it is. I think he's a great player to have on your bench, and we're actually going to be tripling up on Everton in this team. Obviously, there's going to be a huge caveat, which I'll talk about once again later on in this video. Bukayo Saka for me is the best around his price. The one that's close somewhat is probably Kulusevski. Coutinho just hasn't showed enough form, and I don't like Aston Villa's fixtures that much, and that's why I haven't gone for any of their players in this video. However, I will be mentioning a few of them later on. And who else is there really to comment on? Not really anyone else. I think for the captaincy, with the players available so far, it would be between Salah, Cancelo and possibly Heung-min Son, and I would favour Mohamed Salah or Cancelo personally. Let me know who you would captain in this team. And now let's move on to the forwards. The forward line is probably subject to the most change, possibly. Now, with Richarlison, I talked about this as well in the best free hit team video. There is a possibility he will be banned. Now, I'm not Richarlison's biggest fan, but I think that would be ludicrous if he was banned. For example, there have been a few players who've done it this season, throwing flares into the crowd, and they haven't been punished. I think that would be very harsh. And also, he did come off injured, so keep an eye on him. But I actually like him the most from all the Everton assets, and maybe Gordon is the best because of the value, and he's a great enabler, fantastic for a bench boost. But Richarlison for your starting 11 especially, I think he's a great choice, so long as he's fit and he's not banned. Now, I'm not too sure about Pukki. It could be Dennis in his position, or even Ollie Watkins if you can afford it. I think those are the other forwards that haven't been included in this team that I would really recommend. And also, if you still back him a lot, Harry Kane, you can never really underestimate him. Even Ronaldo with a single game week is also fantastic. He's been in incredible form. And I've gone for Nketiah. He had 4 shots in his last game, which is as many as Lacazette had in his last 9 Premier League matches, which isn't really too much of a surprise, to be fair. Nketiah offers Arsenal something different, and I I think he's going to play the vast majority of these games. And in Double Gameweek 36, I would back him to start both unless he's not fully fit ahead of the North London derby. So let's wait and see what happens there. But ultimately, I think he'll start both in this game week, which is the most important thing for you. And at least now we have quite a lot of options to choose from that are quite cheap up front. And that enables you to produce a really strong bench boost team. Let me know what you would change in this. I'm going to show you how it would look in FPL.team, although everyone's going to be part of your team and your points because it's a bench boost. And I'll show you how the captaincy and the vice captaincy would fall under, just to give you a better visualization. So remember, this is going to be FPL.team, the website. I'd highly recommend it. And actually, ever since I've been using it, and I'm not sponsored by them, by the way, but I've actually increased in rank exponentially because it just makes everything much simpler. And there's other sites as well that you could use, like livefpl.net. So I'd highly recommend those sites. Let's go into one of them right now. A lot is made about who's on your bench when you're using the bench boost. I don't really care about that. The only thing I would say is don't put someone on the bench that you're looking to captain, because that just doesn't make any sense. For example, benching Salah, who could be your vice or your main captain. I don't think that makes any sense. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter in my opinion. So I've gone for Schmeichel in goal. It could easily be Pickford. It doesn't matter. I've gone for Cancelo as the vice captain. Now, I said this before. It's between him, Son and Salah for me for the captaincy. If you want to go even more differential, then perhaps you could go for someone like Richarlison. I wouldn't do that personally, but it's still there for you. Maybe Phil Foden could be the one, and possibly Trent Alexander-Arnold. Then there's Saka. So that's kind of the 6 captains I'd mainly look at, but I would narrow it down to 2 or 3. And for me, it's between Salah and Cancelo, and ultimately I've gone for Salah. But if you're looking to chase rank, I would highly recommend Cancelo. And if you have the funds, and I talked about this in my best free hit team video, I would go for De Bruyne. I think he's the best captaincy option this week. I would back him to start both games now. He got his rest against Leeds. So my only concern with the Belgian is that he might come off a bit early if City already have a commanding lead and they don't need to exert him. So this is how it would look. Let me know what you think of this best bench boost team. There's always going to be critics and people who disagree. Maybe you don't think Alonso plays both games. Maybe you don't think Matip plays both games, or that there's better options elsewhere. You might believe that Robertson starts both, so why would you sacrifice him? There's a lot of things you could do differently. Maybe no Heung-min Son is necessary, De Bruyne in for Foden, but ultimately with my budget, I just wouldn't be able to afford the vast majority of things that people would suggest ultimately, and I am working to my own budget, which is quite limited, to be quite fair. The final question that needs answering about this team is how much does it cost? And it's 105.3 million. Some of you may have even more money at your disposal. Let me know which upgrades you would make with that extra money you have and who are the best captaincy options for Double Gameweek 36. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a single upload or stream for F1 Fantasy, UCL Fantasy, and FPL. Keep engaged with all of those games. They're definitely a lot of fun. And also, let's get this video to 150 likes, like I said before, and let's get to 11,000 subscribers. We're very close to those milestones. So thank you very much to everyone who has been supporting the channel, all the Patreons, all the channel members. You're all much appreciated. Thank you very much. And you can join the Discord server. The link is in the description below. And you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. And thank you very much to everyone who's already following. We're now at over 1,000 followers on both platforms. So thank you very much. All the best of luck for Double Gameweek 36. As well as the rest of match day 12 in UCL Fantasy. All the best. Hopefully you enjoy the football as always, and I'll see you next time.